Good morning. Welcome to the Soprema Senior Center. We're so excited to have our special program, Donuts with Senator Dolan. Thanks, Wadsworth Older Adults Foundation, for the donuts this morning. And I'd like to give a thanks to the Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging for making this program possible. They were a sponsor of the expo that just took place Friday. They provide a family and caregiver grant that we have here. They provide so many things like vision screenings for us in the spring, and the Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging is also providing technology classes for us currently. And on behalf of the Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging, I'd like to introduce and welcome Dante Giancola. He's the Director of Government Affairs. And thank you for coming today and really putting this program together, Dante.
Thank you, Lori. This program would not be possible without you. So thank you for making this facility available for this great event. My name's Dante Giancola. I am the Director of Government Affairs, as Lori mentioned. She mentioned a lot of the services that we provide, my organization provides, but one of the things that we don't necessarily talk about a lot is advocacy. We are charged with advocating on your behalf. We can do that in a couple of ways. If you're available next November 13th, I will be back here at Soprema to discuss how to best advocate to elected officials, how to reach your elected officials in a way that's meaningful, that sort of cuts through all the other communications they're receiving. And that'll be on Monday, November 13th. And then the second way, which I'm very excited about, is bringing the elected officials to you. I don't think it can be overstated how powerful sharing experiences and sharing concerns you have about what's going on in your state. You can't overstate how powerful that is when you have that conversation face to face. So I'm very, very excited about today's program. But before we hear from Senator Dolan, I'd like to introduce a familiar face to all of you, Mayor Robin Labaugh. Thank you.
Oh, you know me and my shoes.
Wait, whoa. I mean, we're talking.
You know me and my shoes. Oh, well, thank you, and thank you for being patient. I had the wonderful opportunity to spend some time with Senator Dolan prior to this, and as you can imagine, we just absolutely are so proud of our senior center and proud of the collaboration with all the various entities. And so when we have someone of Senator Dolan's stature, we certainly want to seize the moment and make sure that he sees how all the wonderful things that we've got going on here, and so that's what we did. Well, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Senator Dolan. Prior to his service in the Ohio Senate, he served 3 terms in the Ohio House of Representatives. And while he was in the House, he served as chairman of the Finance and Appropriations Committee. And I just want to take a moment. As a legislator, as you can imagine, one of your most important assignments is, keeping an eye on the finances of the state and making decisions on that. So for him to be the chairman of that particular committee was pretty phenomenal and very important. In his role, he worked with both Republicans and Democrats to pass a nearly unanimous $54 billion budget that lowered taxes and reduced the size of government. He made significant contributions in the area of tax reform and supported tax credits that stimulate business growth. Currently, he is serving his second term in the Ohio Senate, and he is chairing the Senate Finance Committee, and he has done that for the last 3 budget cycles. So I think you have a theme here, and also recognize that how important that particular position is. He represents the areas north of our district, but as you can imagine, the decisions that they are making obviously affect every single citizen here in Ohio. Additionally, he serves on several Senate committees, including the Senate Energy and Public Utilities Commission, and I focused on that one because that's very important for us because, as you well know, we are a public power community, and so decisions made in this committee are very important to us. Prior to his governmental service, he was very active in his community and served on several boards. Senator Dolan is a graduate of Case Western Reserve School of Law, and he has had numerous awards, like a zillion here, but I picked out 2 that I thought you might find of interest. One is he was the Ohio Public Transit Association Legislator of the Year, And I mention that because I know many of you are familiar with the McFlex program, and I thought that that was pretty interesting. The other is he received the Ohio Association of Area Agencies on Aging. He was the elected official of the year in 2019. So obviously he has senior citizens at heart. And so without any further ado, I'll turn the time over to Senator Dolan.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Is it all right if I move this around? Hopefully you can still hear me. So good morning, everybody. So donuts with Dolan. How come Dolan didn't get any donuts? I mean, I don't.
No, it's to keep your figure.
It's to keep my figure, all right. Well, look, so I thought Dante probably set up this conversation well, in that I do want this to be a conversation and to learn from you as much as what I can take down to Columbus and advocate on your behalf as it is that you're going to learn from me. But before we get there, maybe I'll just speak a little bit about me, what our philosophies are in Columbus, and then open up to questions. So first, I am a state senator from the Cuyahoga County area. I'm a little north of you. And I think I'm here because you are well represented by Senator Mark Romanchuk. I don't know if you guys know Mark. And I think it's Representative Miller, I think, is the rep here. So you're extremely well represented by them. I am here because I had the opportunity to serve as the finance chair in the House and the Senate, which is the committee that really defines the priorities of the state of Ohio. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about that. But a little bit about me, so you know where I come from. So I am a lawyer by training, and I've been a lawyer for 34 years now. Started as an assistant attorney general, then a prosecutor, then private sector, and got involved in businesses with my parents. But maybe the most unique thing about me is that you should know I am a product of a U.S. Marine and a Catholic nun. And if we had more time, I can explain how that all came about. Yeah. But as you might imagine, when you have that as your part of your pedigree, sense of community and service is a real big part of our family, and I think I got that a little bit more than my brothers and sisters to serve in the public, but we've all served. And the reason you want to serve is because you want to make a difference. And so when I get to take a tour today with the mayor and with your director and see what's happening here and the difference it's making in people's lives, you know, that makes you feel really good. Because at the end of the day, what we do in Columbus is we take in information and then we decide what is the priorities of the state of Ohio. How do we spend your money is the other way of saying it. And then we are trusting that if we advocate, if we allocate the money the right way, that the people in Ohio will do their best with it. So for me to stand here and say, well, we really support seniors down in Ohio, and I can tell you all the things we funded, that doesn't mean anything unless you have directors and you have local officials who decide to make a commitment with those dollars to make lives better. And the first thing that caught my attention as I was taking the tour is that how many generations of people are under one roof? You know, so you provide as much, you know, when high school kids come over to see you, I mean, think about what that does for them. To listen to you, to have your experience, to hopefully have them ask questions because, you know, the world's awaiting them. You know, we've been through some of this stuff. And at the same time, to feel young. To be exposed to young kids and their ideas and their hopes and their dreams, and to see all the things that are happening with them, that is not something I see a lot of. I think we need to see more of, but I don't see a lot of that. So this intergenerational, constant communication with each other and affiliating with each other is tremendous. And the fact that now, whether you could make it here today or you couldn't, you have an opportunity to see what's happening in your community. Because the investment they make in the cable, I just was over there, and anybody can come in and shoot a show and communicate to your citizens. So it's wonderful. So I'm going to talk a little bit about budgeting, but none of it matters, none of it, unless it's executed, carried out by locals, and you're doing great here. So really, what happens in Columbus with your tax dollar? So I like just to break it down pretty simple for folks. I have to decide how we're going to spend your tax revenues. So for every dollar we get, we assign some state purpose to that dollar. But it's rather easy because fortunately or unfortunately, when I take your dollar and it's just with the state, 53 cents of that dollar goes to education in the state of Ohio. Then you factor in Medicaid, which is a joint federal and state program which helps those who are under a certain poverty level and those who are disabled. That adds another 23 cents to your dollar. And then the other big responsibility of the state is incarceration. So we run all the state prisons. When you add that in, that's another 8 cents to your dollar. So if you do quick math, the majority of your tax dollars go to 3 areas in this state. And that is education, Medicaid, and our prison systems. So everything else we fund outside of transportation, which has a separate line item, we have to spend with the remaining 19 cents that we have. So when we talk about senior avocation, you're talking 19 cents we have to factor in. How much do we give to seniors? And that's why I started the way I did, because it is so important to make sure that of those precious dollars that we're going to advocate, that we maximize them. So we put them in grants. Now this is a little wonky, but what we want to do is be able to allocate the dollars back into the community for seniors and leave as much flexibility with the locals on how to spend those dollars. So when Dante talks about advocacy, it's not just advocacy with me or other state officials, it's advocacy with your director, because she has access to dollars and we want her to be able to do what you want. What is it that you need? And obviously transportation is one area that is sorely needed. And again, the creativity of what's happening here in Wadsworth with your MX, what's that? MC Flex. So I just learned about that this morning. I'm going to take that down to Columbus and talk to folks about how is it that we can match up the needs of seniors particularly, and those who need additional help with this program. Because what does this great building mean if you can't get to it? What are all these options that are available to you if you can't get to it? So that's the kind of creativity we kind of like to see in Columbus. But let me just spend a little bit about education. Because obviously the future of the state and the future of our country depends on the next generation following us. And education is the key to someone's success. But what we're trying to do in Ohio is to do a couple things. Define education in terms of end result. And this is a little more controversial, but be less concerned about where a child gets educated and to make sure the child is getting educated. So let's talk about the broad before. When I'm much closer in age to you than I am to I have a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old son, and I watched them come through high school. And even with my oldest, it was really clear, college. You got to go to college. But then as a legislature and as in business, you see about all these businesses that need help. They need skilled manufacturing. They need skilled tradesmen. And we weren't doing a good enough job in making a kid feel like their path to success does not have to be a 4-year degree. But if you don't know that, or if we don't provide pathways to you, then we lose. So if you talk to these seniors when they come over to you, They should be exposed now to manufacturing, skilled trades, certificates. There is we're very proud of our healthcare here in Northeastern Ohio. Do you know that there are, I'm going to blank on the number now, but there's a significant percentage of jobs that are available in the healthcare field that pay over $50,000 a year that only require a certificate. A certificate is different than a degree in that you do not have to go 2 years to get an associate degree or 4 years to get a college degree. You simply need to do 6 months worth of work to get a certificate, and that provides starting salaries of $50,000 a year. Kids need to know that. Kids need to know that success does not have to be one lane. It's a broader lane. Now, the more controversial thing is, well, okay, but if your kids aren't being educated, don't have the base knowledge, what does it matter? So in Ohio, I said we spend 53 cents of your state dollar. That does not include federal money that comes in. It does not include your local levies. That's just the state. And what have we started seeing over the past few years is that there's been a much more aggressive attitude of taking, look, we like our public schools. And the public schools, by and large, do a tremendous job of educating our kids. But we do have some public school systems around the state that either through misfeasance or all kinds of other reasons aren't educating the kids at the level we want them to be educated. So we decided we can't have kids be trapped in a system that is failing them. So if you look over the last 10 years, we've been very aggressive in providing different opportunities for children to get educated outside of their geographic location where their public school is. And so charter schools have emerged, which, by the way, are public schools. They're just schools that are being started with the approval of the local district, but they're free from some of the constraints that maybe the public schools have, so they can provide educational choices for the kids. And then vouchers. And that is saying to parents, we, the state, you with your tax dollars, part of that 53 cents, we're saying we will give you some money to take that amount and choose a school of your choosing to decide where your child wants to get educated. Now, here in Wadsworth, in Medina County, you might say, well, that's a waste of money. We have such good schools. And if we inquired about how many parents in Wadsworth use it, my guess is it's very little. Because the choice you have is you have a very good system. Now imagine if your kids or grandkids didn't have that, how frustrated it would be. So we have spent a lot of dollars now in all kinds of options for a child to get educated. But this is what gets lost, because hopefully there's questions on this, but this is what gets lost. This year alone in our last budget, we provided to traditional K through 12 public schools an additional $1.9 billion to K through 12 schools, to make it upwards of $16 billion that K through 12 public schools get. Just a few short years ago, it was $9 billion. So when this topic comes up and you hear people say, oh, we're attacking public schools, we are not. We are trying to lift all boats and say money, state dollar money is important to education. So we are not choosing to take money away from Wadsworth to give to parents. We are saying Wadsworth is doing a good job. They should continue to get what the formula says they should get, and we want parents to be able to decide. I spend a lot of time talking about education because, as you see, that's majority of your money goes to this. And everything else we want to see happen in our state, all the bringing the jobs here, making sure that people feel that their business owners feel that they can stay here. That all depends on whether we have an educated workforce. And so get the education, get the baseline education K through 12. make sure every child knows that there's an avenue of success that includes college, but it also includes getting your welder's license like my son did. That's what we want Ohio to do. That's what we want. We want people to stay here and invest in here, but we don't want to become so narrow that businesses look at Ohio and go, there's not enough plumbers, there's not enough electricians, there's not enough healthcare certificate workers. That's what brings states back. And then what we hope is with the money that we generate through an educated workforce, through a proper tax code, that 19 cents continues to come in and we can continue to invest in programs like transportation, like community centers and senior centers like this, that we can help the locals expand on it and bring people together. So I just chose one area. There is a ton of issues that we deal with in the state, and I'd be happy to answer any questions with you, but I can tell you this, I'll end where Dante started, is that we need to hear from you, and you guys have the secret sauce. I tell my sons this all the time. So if my sons are 22 and 20 and we talk politics, they're so frustrated. Why can't they do this? Why aren't we investing in this? Why isn't this happening? And I say to them, well, how many of your generation vote? I show them the stats. From 18 to 30 is the least amount of folks who vote. And if you want to change, you got to get out and vote. And I said, why do you think politicians spend a lot of their time talking about senior issues? Because we know you vote. You matter. So we hope that we're listening to you. So my pitch to you is get those, when you talk to those seniors and those juniors that come over here, remind them how important it is to vote. No matter how dysfunctional we may seem as politicians, as a country right now, if people stop engaging with the vote, then fewer and fewer and fewer people are going to decide who represents you, and fewer and fewer and fewer interests are going to be taken care of. We want this to be a government for the people. The people need to step up and vote, and you can help us with that, because you all vote. When you meet with that generation that comes over from across the hall, get them to vote. That's what will change things. That's why when you turn your TV on and it's all nonsense, it's because not enough Americans vote. And if we get more people engaged in the political system, we will respond. We will respond. So that's my pitch to you. Advocate to us on your issues, but advocate to them to participate in the system. Because if more people participate, the better off we are. So with that, I want to open it up to questions on anything that you want to talk about, including if there's any baseball questions out there. My family is involved in the Cleveland Guardians, and if you like what's happening, that's great. If you don't like what's happening, I'll relay your questions to my brother Paul, who runs the team on a regular basis. So with that, yeah.
Okay, my first question is, I have a real soft spot for the individuals with disabilities in the state of Ohio, since my family and myself have worked with them for 100 years. Well, maybe not quite that long, maybe 50. Anyhow, I don't know if you've paid any attention, but Medicaid has changed the rates that they're giving. And in Ohio, we have county boards, which is unusual. Do you think they can sustain on that kind of cut costs? And if not, do you have any options for them on what these county boards can do?
So for purposes of people back of the room and the people on TV, the question was about Medicaid rates, particularly to those individuals who suffer from disabilities. Just a quick refresher, Medicaid, again, is that federal state program that deals with poverty and disability. Medicare, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, is the senior health care, and that is 100% funded by your taxpayers coming through Washington, and we can talk about that some other day, how we can fix that. what we did this past budget is we increased the rates that Medicaid will reimburse service providers for the Medicaid services, particularly to the disabled. I think the question ultimately was, is that sustainable?
Well, that individuals you're talking about, but we're not, are we talking about, I understand there's providers, because I was a provider.
Yeah.
And those rates have increased very, they've been really good. But my question is to like those programs, like, what is it, Ida Sue in Worcester that has kids coming in and stuff, well, they're all on the Medicaid too, or whatever. And if their rates are cut, how can that school stay in existence?
Okay, it was a specific question, so I'm not sure what you mean by their rates are cut. Whose rates are cut? 'Cause
Medicaid cut the rates for the handicap, for individuals.
okay, well, we're going to have to talk offline because Medicaid pays the providers of the service.
Right.
But,
Well, then I don't
so the
understand.
service provider may have decided to do something. But normally how it works is, so you sign up for Medicaid, provider provides the service, and then the service provider bills Medicaid for the money.
The only thing I know, the county boards just had a meeting, and they are losing a lot of money for this up-and-coming system. And they're either gonna have to have levies on or something else. Now, I don't know how Medicaid had taken that money away from them, but I know they've lost money.
Okay, let's talk offline on that, because that sounds like a one particular agency or service. Because I can tell you, in the budget, what we did is we increased everything to make sure that more providers. That doesn't mean the counties can start their own programs. So we provide monies either directly through the providers or through, with some disabled, it goes through your Adams boards. But counties are able to do things on their own. So we'll figure that out offline.
Yes. Oh, yes, we will. No, just-
I hope I get this communicated well. I have worked the election polls for years. In fact, whenever they have the thing and list how many times, I'm always one with the most time served. Encouraging the younger generation to vote. Some of those kids that are led in by their parents are only coming in to vote, I feel, as their parents have indoctrinated them, and that the kids today look at the TV, look at the riots in New York City, Chicago, and who are they? Are they the white-haired people like me? No, they're the younger generation. And are they, with their unruliness, going to rule our world and determine where those tax dollars that you are trying to manage well are going to be spent? And 18 and older.
So the question was, first of all, what's your name?
Carol.
Carolyn? So I want to acknowledge Carolyn's years of service working as a poll worker on election day, so thank you for that.
And we really need poll workers.
We need poll workers. And then the question was just, I think, expressing some concerns about the youth and their knowledge of the issues, thus if they came in and vote. Carolyn, I would love to have that problem. I would love to have the problem that the youth are coming in and voting at such large numbers that's fundamentally changing what we're doing. I believe this. I believe, she mentioned that sometimes the kids come in and they're voting the way their parents want them to vote. As a public official, I'm not going to do anything to stop that. Parents and children, that's between them. I will tell you that, I told you about 18 to 30. Well, 18 to 26, guess who of that group by far votes the most? 18-year-olds. And then there's a precipitous drop. So once they leave the nest, they're not motivated to vote. So I'm not going to equate the tragedy that's happening in New York and San Francisco and Philadelphia is a result of a lot of things. I am not convinced it's the result of them not voting. It's a result of prosecutors not prosecuting, police turning their backs. It's about, families, the nuclear family in some areas is gone. It's about the education system not getting them the right education, all of those. I don't want to be able to discourage anybody from participating in our system, so.
And I've got 2 grandchildren. Both of them are in their senior years of college. And they both are brother and sister product of a broken home. There was no money to send them to college. Yet they're A.B. students in college. And to graduate this year, sociology and marine biology. And not one grant piece of money has gone towards their education. And one grandma and the other grandma have had to co-sign so they get the educations they want so badly. Now, back when my kids were all in college, we could apply for grants. Now, maybe there's grants out there and these kids aren't hep enough to find them and to apply for them.
So, well, again, thank you for stepping up and helping your grandkids. There are. We've, in fact, there's Ohio College Opportunity Grants available. That's through the state. There's Pell Grants available through the federal government. On the side, we need to get the Pell Grants. Remember I talked about all the expansions ways? We need to get those Pell Grants able to go to skilled trades. Let me just give an example. I mentioned my son. My son went to college for 2 years, wasn't for him, and then wanted to get his welder's license. So he applied for the school, and it was $660 worth of equipment that he had to buy. Now, he was blessed and he had good fortune, so we worked something out and I helped him. But think of how many other kids don't have that. So a Pell Grant is something you can use for your education system to be able to pay for expenses outside of tuition. Well, we need to expand that so that young boy or girl who wants to get a welder's license, that $660 might as well be $600,000 because they don't have it. So that's what we need to do. They're available to go to college. They're not available as much as they should be to expand their educations. There's one over here.
Yeah, the MC Flex program here in town is really great. It's just like Uber,
Yeah.
order to order and everything else. It's working. And the ridership is really going up, expanded to other cities here in the county. The problem is going outside of Wadsworth. Doctor's appointments in Summit County or Akron or what have you, there's no transportation available like that. It'd be nice to have the state help subsidize our local transportation system, to be able to do that.
Yeah, so the question was complementing your MC Flex, and then it's limited now to confines of Wadsworth, but obviously doctor's appointments and other things can carry outside, so can the state help subsidize? Well, this is why I talked about earlier. So the answer would be yes, as long as we know, from my perspective, as long as I know it's working. So being introduced to it today, I now can follow it. I'll talk to the mayor, I'll talk to your director. But yes, I mean, those are things we want to be able to invest in if they are working. Because there are, like Geauga County, I met with them a few weeks ago, and they have a transit system. But just like the mayor earlier said to me, it wasn't working. You see the buses and there's nobody on them. So why is it? And just to say to the state, well, we need another bus. I said, well, how do you show me your ridership? So I didn't even know this existed when I talked to them. So looking at programs that are actually working. So if there is state subsidy, remember, state subsidy is your dollar. It's your dollar. So I want to make sure if I'm spending your dollar, it's actually working. And just thinking out loud for the first time seeing this, that's where I would focus any subsidies, would be any medical outside of Wadsworth. You know, we could expand it to maybe any employment, but then we probably don't have the capacity to do that. So,
Well, you know, the VA does help out. They can take you to Cleveland, things
Yeah.
like that. There's some insurance companies that have transportation. A lot of seniors don't have.
yeah. Well, it's the first I'm hearing it. I don't, is this the first around the state? Where's Lori or Mayor?
I haven't heard of it before, and as I said, this piloted this past year, but it seems to be very well.
Yeah. So it's the first I'm hearing. That's, again, I learned from you. Hopefully you learn a little bit from me, but that's something you take back and say,
Yeah, a lot of seniors, you know, they go to different areas in Akron,
Yeah.
doctor's appointment,
right.
and they just can't do it. So they gotta get somebody to take them.
Yep.
When they implemented that program, the man did speak, and he did say that, because this was a new program, the beginning of this year, that they would expand it outside the county, because here we are, Wadsworth, Summit County, right, the road is the line, and all the doctor's appointments, majority,
Right.
Summit County.
Right. The question was whether the state would step up and help cover some of those costs. And my answer is, if it's working, it's worthy of it.
So my theory was that they were to give that a try, and then if things worked out, expand it outside the county.
Yeah.
Was that your opinion?
No, well, they expanded it in the Medina, they're doing
Oh.
Medina now, right now, the city
Oh.
of Medina, they're doing it there.
Okay.
The Uber type system we got here, so it really worked here.
Yep.
You say 53 cents is spent for education. How much of that 53 cents goes to charter schools?
So the question was, of the 53 cents that we go to education, just before I answer the question, let me give you a caveat too. So that's state, that Medicaid 23 cents, when the federal government's money comes in, that takes the overall spending on Medicaid over 50%. So if you saw an all funds budget for education, it's below 50%. But just state dollars, it's 53%. Question then was, how much go to charter schools? Charter schools are public schools. So when we do our formula, and in our formula this year, it's roughly about $13 billion that goes out to the formula. Charter schools get the money they need for operations out of that formula because they are public schools. What charter schools don't get is capital for bricks and mortar. The state doesn't provide that until recently. This budget we did. So the vast majority of the education dollars goes towards public schools, of which charters. So in Cleveland, we have a lot, in the Cleveland public school system, they have a lot of charters. So they get the same amount of money as the local schools get. But they don't get the local levies. So if the state says each school gets $6,000 in this district, the traditional K through 12 public schools, they get the local money. The charter public schools just gets the state money. So that's the difference between, as a result of not taking the local money, they have a lot more freedom, including they don't have to hire teachers who are part of the union. So if they want to be flexible there, they can do that. On the voucher system, so just so you can put it in perspective, we budgeted $1 billion for the vouchers. We're probably not going to hit that. $13 billion for traditional K through 12 public schools, $1 billion for vouchers. So vouchers is not cannibalizing your public schools dollars. Money still goes there.
Senator, I was just checking the time, and I know you need to sneak out after that, like right at 1:11.
Okay.
So probably-
Okay. Who wants the last question? There's a brave guy.
Can I ask an international question?
Sure.
Okay. If you were a U.S. Senator, are there any actions that you've thought about that you would take to safely release the U.S. hostages that are being held in the Middle East?
audio.
Have you thought about anything you might do to help Israel because it's surrounded by its enemies right now?
So the question is a little bit about international and Israel and the hostages. So this is a non-political event, so I'm going to be generic in my answers, but the mindset I have is what is in the best national security interest of the United States of America? And I would look at through that lens. The issue of helping Israel for me is in the best interest of Americans' national security interests because of our allies, because of who's surrounding, because of what would happen, the relationships these countries would have with some other countries, say Russia, say China, that would not be in our best interest if we're not there. This issue with the hostages is terrible, terrible. We're not negotiating somebody who is sitting in a bank. These guys are using these hostages as shields. And they're going to use the public perception of what's happening there is going to be twisted by the media if these hostages get killed in the onslaught of the military trying to deal with the terrorist organization that caused all this. So it's hard for me to say what I would do. My style would be to ask a lot of questions and say, if, like for instance, Israel's been building up on the border of the Gaza Strip for weeks now. Now, I don't know, and probably no one in this room knows what's happening. What's happening because of that? Is there things? Are there, infiltrations, finding out where the hostages are? Are there real negotiations going on? So the answer is I don't know any of that stuff, but I would want to know if that's happening. And then at some point you got to make the terrible decision. There isn't movement or there is movement. If there's no movement, how do you let these guys get away with that? So difficult questions for sure.
God bless you for answering.
Yeah, that was a tough question to answer.
Okay, well, thank you for giving me some time this morning. Again, November 13th, I think Dante said he's going to be back. We learn a lot more from you when you talk. If you don't talk to us, we don't learn. So take the time to advocate. Thank you, everybody.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.